Welcome to the Joe Cohen Show. Join me as I share my experience with biohacking and invite top health experts to explore the latest technology, supplements, research, and resources for optimizing your body and brain. Hey everyone, I'm here with Martin Kremmer, who is the CEO and co-founder of BioWatch and FreeAge, as well as the co-founder of Copenhagen Health Week. He's been a leading figure in the Danish biohacking scene since 2012, and since his TEDx talk in 2019, he has dedicated himself full-time to his mission to change the healthcare paradigm in Denmark. We're going to be discussing what his company does, his biohacking adventures, how he uses DNA and epigenetic testing in order to develop longevity plans, and how he his overall biohacking approach and what he does for himself. And we'll go through all that stuff. So thanks for coming on, Martin.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about what BioWatch does in terms of DNA and epigenetic testing.
So I guess I'll start at another place, which is all about up here in Scandinavia. It's a little bit difficult to get lab tests done unless you're sick, right? So we started the mission with the company, like many other countries, to just build the infrastructure really to enable that we could, send tests to labs and get the data back and get that whole thing built into our platform, which you'll be surprised how hard that is even today in 2025 here in Europe. So but we started that with the journey of BioWatch. We did a whole bunch of corporate testing, simple blood tests, and that really worked out for only a short period of time. But then we realized, it was much more fun to work with people and kind of dig deep and help people beyond just raising vitamin D, right? So we started looking into DNA testing and epigenetic testing. So the way we use that is ducked into our platform. We now have this program we call FreeAge, which is really a longevity program that, like yourselves, are really fans of using DNA to understand your risk and using all sorts of other parameters and modalities to try and triangulate what is the true health status of this individual and how do we help them mitigate the risk that we see in their DNA. So that's the kind of a short version of how we do it.
Okay, yeah, and I think what you guys are doing is interesting. I think that's the future because basically, I think previously people were using like one thing and trying to base everything off of that one thing. Whereas I think the future paradigm of functional health or medicine or whatever is you need to use a lot of different kinds of data. And just to be clear, so what we saw as a company is that the genetics piece was severely lacking in the space. But then we also saw that, hey, look, in order to actually provide a lot of value, you can't just look at the genetics piece. So, the consumer platform is more looking at a bunch of stuff together. But what we did was we wanted to say, okay, we think that there's a lot of people who can do great things here by combining a lot of stuff, right? Because that's the future is really like you're going to combine DNA, epigenetics, lab testing. And so what we did is we kind of open sourced our DNA stuff, meaning like we made it available with an API. You guys are using that API, but you're also doing a lot of other stuff on top of that, which is the exact, use case that we had in mind when we made that available to other partners so that you don't have to recreate each technology. You could kind of bundle them and provide a much better experience in that way and more holistic experience. You're looking at many types of data. And the problem is when you're only looking at either lab data or only DNA data or only, symptoms or conditions or only epigenetic data, it's not going to really tell you something. You're just going to be missing other pieces of the puzzle.
Totally.
Right?
Totally agree with that.
I personally find the DNA the most fascinating just because with one test, you could get the most, like the biggest quantity of information, right? Would you agree with that?
It holds the potential to wake people up. It's how I see it, because although a lot of what's in your DNA is like, what should you use it for? It's not necessarily doomed that, you got this little snip here and you're all going to die early. I mean, we don't try and use it in that way. We are more like, let's use genetics to motivate people for change. Because I think that there are far too many services out there where you get a DNA test and you get your 90-page PDF that nobody bothers reading anyway. And you go home from a consultation and you're all scared about, it happens quite often here in our clinic. We get people through the door who've got a test somewhere in the city. And they go, oh yeah, I got like 80% risk of dying from Alzheimer's. I said, no, you don't. That's a relative risk. That's not your actual risk, your absolute risk of getting Alzheimer's. So let's talk through that, right? So we're you're trying to flip that around and say, how can we actually use these things to create calm and peace in people's mind? Because I think illness, anxiety is a real thing. And people are more and more afraid of getting all sorts of diseases. And if that's your driver, then I don't think you're going to reach your goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think motivation is one of the big factors. And then also there needs to be some kind of filtering, because the more data you have, the more people either could be scared or they don't know what to do with it. They're not sure how to reconcile all the pieces of information. I'm a big believer that more data is better. It's just you have to reconcile all that pieces of information and make sure to put it in the right context,
Totally.
which is what you need, further. That's why you need practitioners, you need other clinics and things like that to look at the big picture. Because, we could say, let's say, okay, you have a DNA risk, that's your higher risk for Alzheimer's. But then you could work on countering that, doing testing, doing a whole bunch of different kinds of things in order to prevent that or push it off.
Totally. And that's where, like, we both agree on the triangulation side of things. Like, you have to have other measures in play so that you can get the full picture of the individual. There is really, it sounds so simple to say these days, but, back when the whole biohacking movement started, this kind of notion of there's no one size fits all. That's really catching on now with personal medicine and everything, really happening at a broader scale. And I think, being at the forefront of that is where you want to be right now, because people gravitate towards the answers that are meaningful and the answers that are fulfilling in a way where, again, like, you're not being scared off with a diagnosis or something, but you feel like you're actually taken seriously and you get a plan that's solid and made for you. And that's, again, where the DNA comes in. Like, the polygenic risk scoring that you guys are doing is really phenomenal, because it gives us a hardcore tool to use, and then build on that with blood tests, saliva tests, grip strength. Whatever you can throw in there, right? It makes it really easy. So
yeah, there's a lot of testing you could do, like you said, that you're doing. I think the DNA test is a good start, because you could really see a lot in a short amount, just in one test, and just kind of like get the landscape, if you will. And then when you want to go deeper, you could start saying, okay, well, if this person's at risk for this, what are the early signs, or what are the ways to prevent this? And then you could go down that path. So how do you guys use, do you guys are first a clinic, or first, how do you guys operate?
Well, so we consider ourselves a health tech company more than anything. The fact that we develop a clinic now is more practical. We used to go out and, as I mentioned, do a lot of corporate testing with blood tests. So we were the first here in Europe to use these shoulder capillary blood devices that are becoming more and more popular in the US, I've noticed. So we were actually the earliest using it.
What is that called? The Tasso or something?
Yeah, we're using something called 7 Sense, similar concept.
Similar concept.
3 or 4 different brands on the market now. And that's really making things efficient and smooth, right? That you can do blood tests like really, really simply. So that's how we go about it. But we consider ourselves a technology health tech company, because most of what we do is gathering all the data and analyzing it, with our medical team before we then release the answer in a digital format to the client, right? So no PDFs or anything like that. It's all with you, and it's built as a coaching service as well. So you can kind of assign tasks and do like supplement lists and everything for our clients, which makes it really easy for our coaching team to just maintain the relationship. So that's
right.
That's how we build it.
That makes sense. I do think that, like we said, a lot of people, they get overwhelmed when they have too much information. And so they need a filtering system. I think we're living in the age of information, and people now need a filtering system to see, okay, how do I put this in what context? Okay, so take me through the steps of what are some of the most important tests you're doing, in your opinion.
Well, I think they're all very important. And we are actually, we're trying to emphasize that to our clients, that they, like, for instance, our simple thing like a grip strength test, it's very important in isolation. And we tell the clients why. Things like a VO2 max test, very important. That's in itself, something that everybody should get done, in my opinion.
What's your grip strength and VO2 max?
So my grip strength is roughly, it's going to be in kilos. I'm not sure that's going to mean anything to you.
That could mean something.
Roughly 69 kilos.
69. Let's times that. Oh, that's very good.
It's very good.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's solid grip strength.
It is indeed. But then VO2 Max, I actually just did another test, like a real. So we're using, you might want to look this up actually. There's a cool Danish startup. Of course, I'm blanking on the name right now, but they basically built this little seismographic reader that you put on your chest, and it does the reading of the how the air flows through your lungs, and it gives you an estimate of your VO2 max. And it's for people who are really, really fit, it's a little bit off, but basically it's, I think last time I did a check, it was like 52 or something for VO2 max. But yesterday I did a classic test, with a breathing mask and lactate in my ears all bloody because of all the lactase test I was doing. So that, well, excited to see how that comes out. Hopefully a little bit higher.
Well, what was the original one, or just in general, your VO2 max?
53 or 52, somewhere around that.
Okay, that's also pretty good. Your grip strength, I'd say, is better relative to the VO2 max, though.
Yeah, that's true. I have a career in innovation for 21 years. I'm an old guy, 44, but I decided that for me, it was important to get at least one good workout in during the week. So I train every Friday.
Okay.
And then, I run whenever I feel like it. So more focused on strength than cardio.
Just for yeah, that makes sense. Just for comparison, a lot of people have heard of Brian Johnson. So his grip strength in his dominant hand is 134. Yours is 152. And you guys are similar age. Mine is actually more similar to his. I think I'm probably like 130.
That's not bad.
It's pretty good.
We can talk about that. I mean, the secret, as I see it, and what we are actually finding with a lot of our clients, because they're busy executives, many of them, right, is that the moment you focus on recovery, magic happens. Far too many people train too much for the full cycle of recovery to really kind of give them the benefit, in my opinion, because we always forget that you're living a busy life, you got kids, you got your job, you got your vacation schedule, you got, your training and everything else around that, right? And then recovery just takes longer time. So I decided 3 years ago, 1 pass a week, full on CrossFit style, and that's it. And in the time I've done that, all the other guys in my team, I'm the one who's definitely stepped up the most when it comes to muscle power. Yeah.
Interesting. What's so you're only working out at the gym once a week?
Yep.
That's incredible. Sometimes I'll go hard, but then because I've been traveling a lot past year and a half, naturally I'm just taking long breaks. It's interesting. I had a few injuries and I just stopped working out for a while. Did more light exercise when you're traveling, like walking or whatever. And then, your injuries go away.
Yeah, I think that there is something to say about that, which I think, some of our best testimonials with clients come from people who were in that state of overtraining and overstress, right? And they didn't realize because, and we all think, we all know, right? Because we've been in this space for a long time, but I'm telling you, the average gym instructor will tell you, you need to come every day or you need to train 3 or 4 times a week. But if you're a successful founder or running a company or even just a regular employee working, around the clock, that's just not good for you. Not good. So some of the best testimonials are people who we've basically just told, we've looked at everything. We can tell you have a tendency, for instance, in your CRHR2 gene, that once you get stressed, it's hard for you to stop it again, right? So when you're in that state of kind of sympathetic drive because of all the training, because of all the work, and you never get into parasympathetic mode, you're not going to recover fully, and you're always going to be stuck in that mode. And when we tell people do less, they come back and say, I've never slept better, I've never been more energized. It's really amazing how little tweaks can fix people's lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's overtraining is a big problem. I was overtrained for some time, and I noticed that through different markers. I think, one of the markers that can indicate it, I think, is serum protein, probably. No? If it's lower?
We don't use that specifically. That's where we connect with wearables, really, to just see simple things
HRV.
like HRV.
Yeah. Okay. I experienced the same thing. I need way more recovery than workout, or else my HRV declines. Like if I do, even if it's not the gym, if I'm doing intense exercise every day, HRV declines for sure.
Yeah. It's a good little rule to remember that if you're if you have a wearable, right, just make sure that HRV, if it tanks after your workout, well, then, the day after, definitely do not go and work out again, right? It needs to be either at baseline or up a little bit before you work out again. And for some people, that takes a long time. But even if you're just at baseline, it's not the same as your body is fully recovered, right?
Why is it for founders, you're saying they need to even work out less? Is that because there are other stresses?
Yeah, I mean, you're a founder yourself, right? And I kind of took on the range from our companies. I was appointed as a CEO about 1.5 years ago. And I mean, you think you're busy, but until you become a CEO and you have to do everything and you have to build a team and everything else, I mean, it's just the amount of little things you have to do. Certainly, I could feel it just increased my stress levels so much that I needed to do things differently in order to maintain my health.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, you're saying the overall stress burden.
Yeah, until you get big enough where you have a big enough team, right? So when you're in that growing, scaling phase, it's a little bit hard.
Right. Well, how big is your team?
So, we had a lot of time-based employees working in the clinic here, but we are actually only a 5-person team working full time. Since we've done a lot of things digitally, it's fairly efficient. And then we have 8 or 9 coaches that are just flying in and out, helping our clients whenever we need them. So.
Nice. So most of your clientele is based in Denmark?
Yeah, most of them are. I mean, we have a few around the world that are just, usually Danes that live in other places, but we're starting to get some requests in from other countries as well, trying to figure out how we do that properly. So We'll see how we can scale that part of the business. But we're doing a lot with sports teams as well. We're doing something with professional cyclists. So I've coached some of the top cyclists in the world. And again, that's back to recovery. I mean, basically what we do with them is understanding and figuring out what's the unique recovery strategy for them, like when to do ice baths, or when to do breath work and all that kind of stuff that we all love talking about.
What kind of HRV do you like to see?
I mean, that depends. If you're a Tour de France cyclist, I would love to see it in the very high, obviously. But even those we've seen gone down way into the 60s sometimes for some of the young cyclists there. But for an average 40 years old person, or like in that range, 40 years, I like to see it around 35. That's the average. And I think it's also very, very important to remember that there's a huge variance when you look at HRV. I think the standard deviation for the norm is plus minus 16, right?
Right.
And you can have a super healthy person whose HRV is down in the 20s. I've seen that many times. And it really depends on, I think, what kind of toll that they put on themselves throughout the life, right? And getting it up back in the 40s, I'm not sure that's really going to make a big difference for them. But that's to be seen, I think.
Right. What kind of lab testing you do for all the people that come through? They're all doing DNA tests. Is that like one of the standard tests? Okay. They do a DNA test. What kind of lab tests are standard?
So we'll do the usual lipid panel. We'll do vitamin D, B9, B12, folate, selenium, inflammation markers. We do hormone tests. So we do testosterone, free testosterone, estradiol, progesterone. I mean, the whole works pretty much. And we're looking to expand the panel a little bit with simple things like an LPA test is not available over here. It's very odd. And homocysteine is something that, only a few hospitals can measure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The genetics are pretty good at predicting LPA and homocysteine. For mine, it showed my genetic predisposition for LPA was higher and homocysteine was higher. Both of them are higher or were higher. It does a pretty decent job for predicting, whether you're more likely to have higher levels of these.
So what was your main trick to get homocysteine down then?
Homocysteine is very easy to get down. I mean, it wasn't one main trick. I basically did like 10 things because you kind of want to spread it out. You don't want to just go overboard with one thing. But, there's the methyl B vitamins. That's one. In general, B vitamins are going to help a lot. Yeah. You have the trimethylglycine that's going to help. MSM is going to help. So any kind of methyl supplement is going to help. These are some of the main ones that I take. I mean, there's other ones as well. And, you could just take more if it's not going down, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to see my next homocysteine tests whenever I'm going to go to the US in April and get a test done there. We'll see see how that goes. It was way high 6 years ago, and I got it down just with
What was the
just
number?
I don't recall. It was way above. I mean, if you look at my TED talk, you'll see the graph. I can't even remember it, but it was really high, like critically high,
Mm.
right? And
Okay.
I got it down just by upping the dose, like you said, on methylated B12. So
Yeah, that's more easy. The lipoprotein A is harder to get down. I found you could probably get it down like maybe 10-15% naturally, which is not that big of a percent. I mean, it's not that big of a decline.
right.
I take a PCSK9 inhibitor to get it down another 25%.
Oh
So
yeah.
you could get it down like 40%.
Yeah.
With the current technology, as far as what I can do, right? I think I've gotten it down to half from 50%.
That's cool.
But they are coming out with drugs to just completely like get it down very low. And once those come out, I'll be taking them.
Well, I mean, we're spending a lot of time on educating our clients on not to worry too much about cholesterol and really focus more on inflammation and making sure that that's low, which is where the epigenetic test comes in. So we're working with Steve Horvath's team at UCLA using their Grimates test there, which is really, I mean, when you look into the data set, it's got hundreds of markers that are really worth looking at, not just what you see in the standard report, but there's a lot of things in there. Super helpful.
Interesting. So you don't think LPA is that big of an issue?
I think it is, but we just can't measure it, unfortunately. So I don't have any
Oh, I see.
proven.
For now, I would just go with the genetic test and see if somebody has a predisposition for higher.
That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And if they do, then you could be like, yeah, you should get this tested sometime, right? Like in a lab and make sure that their actual results are high. But like it's going to be pretty correlated with the genetic result. So that's what I'm saying is you could get a large amount of things tested with, just one test. So it gives you a landscape, and then you could decide where you want to go further and validate and confirm. And so, were you testing ApoB as well?
We will be. We haven't done to date, but we've just upgraded the test to do that. So yeah, ApoB. So that'll be part of it. We are just expanding our blood panel to make sure that we cover more bases. So far, we just, and to be honest with you, when you get into the details of the lifestyle interventions, I mean, 80% of what we recommend will definitely make a difference for people should they have increased LPA. But the marker will be nice to have for sure, just to, again, to your point about data, right? Really showing there is a good risk decrease here.
For me personally, the lifestyle stuff, I don't know if I noticed. The only thing that I really noticed strongly that it impacted the LPA, meaning there's things that could impact markers, but if it's not significant enough, you just won't know if it's noise or, if it moves a few points here or there, it's like, okay, it could just be, who knows what it's from, right?
Yeah.
The only thing I noticed significant was the PCSK9 inhibitor. That was the only thing. Like I take that, I could see the numbers going down very clearly.
Well, that's a good advice. I have looked into that. I think we share a lot of genetics, you and I, in that regard. So I should look into that. I mean, that's another challenge that I think, again, part of my life is also trying to move the needle in a society. And, things like peptides, I mean, not allowed in Denmark. You have to get them from Estonia, which is part of EU. That's fine, but it's so highly regulated what you can do over here. It's really bonkers.
Let's go through some of the supplements that you're taking. How many supplements do you take a day, would you estimate?
Well, so there's pretty good Danish brand similar to AG1, just better in my opinion. And I know the guys who formulated it. Okay. It's called Anders. So that's a multivitamin with like everything you would find in AG1. On top of that, I do take TMG, I do take L-tyrosine, I take taurine, I take berberine, I take melatonin at night, I take theanine, ashwagandha, and extra vitamin D, extra fish oil. So yeah, pretty standard for most biohackers, I would say. But yeah, probably not as many as you.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, so when you're taking like one of these formulas with a lot of stuff, that I make my own formulas for myself. So it's kind of like, it's hard to, depends on how much of the active ingredients they're putting in these formulas. Sometimes they don't put a lot. Like AG1 is not enough of a lot of active ingredients.
I do take extra B vitamins. I do also add 10 grams of glycine to the mix, right? I add salt. I don't know whether salt counts as a supplement. It should, really. So yeah, it's a pretty big mix that I take every morning. So.
Okay, so you take it in like one of these shakes?
Yeah, so the shake, like the AG1 type say, it's called IOS, AIOSS. It's a really good, clean brand developed here in Scandinavian countries where we know that, quality is pristine and it's lab tested and all that stuff, right? But then, as I said, I mix that with glycine, I mix that with salt, I mix that with apple cider vinegar, I mix it with about 6 grams of
Okay.
creatine, including some taurine. And then the rest is supplements, basically, like classic supplements.
Taurine
So
can help lower your homocysteine too.
all right, that's right. Forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully my numbers are good when I get them. I feel good though. So
Okay.
yeah,
So, I mean, you can't really feel the homocysteine though. It's
no.
one of those things you just won't be able to feel it. You have to test for it.
But what we do though with clients is we have a relationship with a partner that does ultrasound scans of the arteries, like up here in the neck and on the heart and down in your thighs and all of that. So it's really comprehensive. If people have that risk, we'll make sure that they look after with scan.
So I would say that you're taking, I wouldn't say you're going too crazy with supplements. You're taking, I think, a good stack overall, I would say.
Good.
You take any pharmaceuticals, peptides?
No, not yet. Like I said,
Okay.
peptides is a little bit of a. I mean, we're looking into it for sure, and I do have some clients where we do have
I think,
peptides as part of the mix, but I don't personally take it.
I think peptides are overrated in general.
Yeah,
I think they're usually overrated. Not that, I think there's like a hierarchy in what somebody needs to do.
Yeah.
It's like you want to go for the things that are going to have the best bang for your buck. So it's like, okay, number one, make sure you're sleeping, like exercise, getting outside, getting some sun. There's kind of like a hierarchy, and everybody could have their own hierarchy. After you do the lifestyle, then I think, the diet, a lot of that makes good sense. And probably maybe like diet, even like maybe sleep, exercise, diet. And then with diet, I guess is, that could get into some weeds, but like there's, number one is don't eat any processed foods. That's just
Totally.
going to take care of, 80% of any issues there. Right. And then also solve the food sensitivities. I think those are the two main things with diet, like, because a lot of people have food sensitivities or allergies. And so if you're eating something that's causing inflammation, that's going to be a problem. Otherwise, if you just stay away from, if you're able to find those and you stay away from any processed foods, then I think you've got, 80% of the battle with diet, pretty much.
Totally agree. I mean, and that's again, people make longevity sound like it's an art. I mean, in my opinion, just do the basics and get that honed in over time. The compound effect of that is going to be, there's a lot of value in that, right? But and again, back to DNA, that's where you got a lot of insights coming out that people haven't thought about. And because of the taboo belabored with digestive issues, for instance, I mean, it's you won't believe some of the stories we hear, like people go to the toilet twice a week. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, that's interesting.
And they've just normalized that. That's just the way of their life, that they are not, they're pooping twice a week. And I'm like, what? You just take this supplements and you can go more frequent to the toilet. And it's like, that's not solving the problem. But I mean, that's what we're up against. People are normalizing the weirdest things in their lives.
I think when you get to the supplements, we're talking about a lot of the basic supplements, a lot of them you're taking, let's say, right?
Yeah.
There's kind of like a basic group of supplements. Then there's like a little more advanced. Then there's more advanced. Yeah, there's a couple layers there, right, that you want to get through. That's how I started. When I started, when I was 20 or whatever it is, I started with like, okay, I really focused on all the lifestyle stuff. Then I focused on a lot of diet stuff. And then I focused on, then I focused on the basic supplements. And then I focused on getting more advanced and more advanced. Then you could try herbals and whatever. And I think I made some mistakes along the way where my biggest mistakes was not really doing the more basic things first. So even within a category, like within the supplement category, I'm one of my biggest mistakes was like not actually diving deep into each nutrient first. Meaning like, because sometimes you think, I don't think I need that. And then you just go with like, plant extracts and whatever. And then later on, you figure out, hey, I've been deficient on these nutrients all along. Amino acids, you got to make sure you're solid on all the amino acids, right? And then you want to go through some of the herbals. So there's like, I'd say the basics, vitamins, minerals, amino acids. I would say probiotics would be on a more basic level after the essential nutrients, right? You want to make sure that your gut has all the important probiotics. Then you go into the extracts. There's a hierarchy of how you want to do things.
Sure.
And then after all that, I would go into pharmaceuticals, me personally.
Yeah.
right? And this is what I've done. I didn't take any pharmaceuticals until I'd say probably the past year or two, maybe 2 years, past few years, right? But pharmaceuticals, because that's like you're doing something that's very specific, proven, and it's already, you did all the basic stuff. So you see where you're at left, what's needed to be done. I kind of played around with peptides all along here and there, but like never so strong. I feel like now I'm just starting to get like more deeply into the peptides. Again, I've taken a lot of them over the years, but kind of just here and there, wasn't like in a systematic way. But what I found is that people are starting with peptides. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's a problem that people think there's a shortcut to everything, and there really is not. There's hard work, and like you said, you had a lot of failures. I would call them learnings. That you and that's, I'm sure you've seen this too in my work with the Danish biohacking community that I founded way back. I quickly realized, and I was like this myself. You have to visit the boundaries of your own routine, right? You have to be a little bit of extremist to find where the boundaries are. And I mean, that's the N=1, right? It's figuring it out yourself. And I think for me, the teaching people how to shortcut that is where the magic lies, right? Because not many people like you and me would have the patience to go through all of the learnings, right? People just want a quick resolution to issues. So.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. No, so there's, with the technology that we have now has allowed us to really shortcut the entire process.
Totally.
And do a lot, get a lot further than it took me and you, many, many years of experimentation and whatnot, right?
And now we have an obligation to teach young doctors what we know, in my opinion. That should be how we fix the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I found that out of everything I've ever tried, peptides were the least effective.
Yeah.
Just very frank. Like, now it doesn't mean that some of them aren't good. Like, one of the new ones I tried was SS31. That's probably the most effective one I've ever tried.
What was your reason for taking that, if I may ask?
I just take everything. Like, I have no, sometimes,
Okay.
it's like, I'll just, if you tell me something new, I'll just take it as long as it's not dangerous. I mean, I have like a list of 100 things that I want to experiment with. Yeah. It's just kind of like it's just a long, I mean, it's a never ending list because I always, there's always something new to experiment with. And I see a whole box sitting in the corner with like 100 supplements. It's like to my experiment list. It's like all the stuff I want to experiment with. Some of the things I've experimented with, but like maybe they're new extractions or maybe a different kind of, there's something unique about them. When I experiment with something, I have to decide, okay, what is most likely to have the biggest bang for my buck for this next experiment, that if I figure something out, it's going to be, making a big difference. And it always seems like peptides are pushed off,
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I'll let you know when I get dived into that whole rabbit hole of peptides. Yeah, we're working on it, but it's.
Have you tried any peptides?
Actually, I haven't.
Because it's hard to get in Denmark, I assume. That's why?
Yeah, and it's super expensive. I mean, there are a few, like in the UK, you could order it, but then there will be issues with customs. And then you can order it in Estonia, and that's pretty good, but it's just super expensive. And quite honestly, like you were saying, it may not be the best bang for your buck. So why spend 100 euros per month on that, or even more, right? You can easily spend 200
right. And then there's at least research too. So if we look at the research, we look at my effects. I'm looking at my effects, and I'm just like, this is overhyped. Like, I don't really see. I've tried a lot of them. I haven't really stuck with any of these peptides long term. The one that I'm looking at most seriously that I would stick with is maybe SS31. But again, there's also a larger cost to it because you're injecting it. I mean, it's not a huge problem, but maybe I'll do an intranasal one and see how that goes. But essentially, out of all these peptides, I mean, there's BPC, didn't get at the level of the effect that other people were saying, for sure. And in some of them, I noticed something, but it just didn't feel like it was for me, like Semax and cerebral lysine. It just felt like it was going too overboard in like BDNF and nerve growth factor or BDNF. So it was just it wasn't for me, those things. Semax, Selenk. Then there's like these workout peptides, which I don't think I need. Yeah. So it's mainly the mitochondrial ones like the SS31, MOTS-c. I've heard good things, but I still need to, I have it. I just haven't tried it yet. But I overall, the conclusion is that peptides, I think the reason they're overhyped is because it's new, it's sexy, they're a little hard to get, and so it has to go through a physician. So things that I feel like sometimes things that physicians gatekeep sometimes gets like a more, because they feel like, okay, you need to come to me to
Yeah, for
get this
sure.
thing. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you don't come to me, you can't get this. So it gives them a little more power. I think it's just overhyped though.
Yeah, I mean, everything's got its place whenever it's needed. And I think BCP 157 is the one that some of my clients are using, and they do feel a little bit of a difference, but it's so hard to tell, it's whether
It's
it's
hard to
just
tell.
placebo or whatever. So I'm
It's
with
hard
you.
to
I
tell.
mean, I do think though there's a good podcast. What is it called? Longevity with Natalie Needham. She does a whole lot of peptide details, and a good friend of mine, and she's super stoked about it. And I think, and she's got a point though, that there's just not enough testing going on, and most of it is done in Russia, and for obvious reasons, it's kind of closed
That's right.
down all the latest science on that.
Right.
So I think peptides will have a second wave of popularity once we get things resolved in the world order, hopefully.
The ones with more clinical trials on them, I think SS31 is one of the only ones with, like, it's one of the few with clinical trials. The other ones are mainly animal studies. So like this SS31 at least had a phase 3 trial, which is more than all these other peptides.
That's true.
And then as of 2020, the trial expectations were not met. You basically get these peptides when they fail, either if they're failing clinical trials or if they never even, it's like it wasn't even good to put it through a clinical trial, which is interesting. But I did notice something from that. Let's talk a little bit about your Copenhagen Health Week. Tell us about that.
Sure thing. Well, really, like I mentioned a couple of times, I think for me, the reason I got into this whole thing, like many others, I mean, I had my own illness back when I was 30, like lots of burnouts symptoms. And that really started a whole journey of, we need to do something different in society, and it's becoming an old story, that you go and see your doctor, you don't get the help you need and all that jazz we've heard many times, right? But so long story short, I've done a lot of meetups. I've done a lot of like local biohacker community type esque things over the years. And, I'm good friends with Tim and Timo and the guys up here in Northern Europe doing their awesome conferences, going to both of them every year. But it's like something was missing here locally. So I got together with a good friend of mine who runs like a biohacking clinic, with all the bells and whistles. And we decided, well, it's time to do something locally here. And, really last year, and when was this, March? We, pure coincidence, we managed to bump into the right people who were really experienced in running big tech conferences. So we pulled off a massive year one with almost like 1,900 participants through the doors.
Oh, that's a lot.
Lots of exposure, really nice. It was a whole week. So the concept is basically that we're trying to put it on the map for the municipality of Copenhagen. And we got sponsorship from the municipality. So they're chipping in with the venue and all of that, which is phenomenal.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really, we're trying to make, I think we had almost 100 little mini events throughout the week, like yoga classes, dance, meditation, ice bath, whatever, small lectures here and there. And then they would all culminated in the weekend for what you would call more classic conference of keynote stage, conversation stage, lots of exhibitors and all of that. So this year is going to be even better because we're all really, really focused on how do we change society for the better. So we have 3 tracks in our vision: is body, mind, and society. So this year we're going to do an industry day just for practitioners, doctors, and we're going to bring all the smartest people from around the world to educate their peers, basically. Because so many young doctors over here are unemployed. You won't believe it, but we have more doctors than we need. We just don't have them in the right positions. So we're trying to work with the authorities to really put a new light on what we call biohacking or alternative medicine. We're trying to, through the lens of functional medicine, really change the name of the game in Denmark when it comes to proactive health. So I'm really stoked about that industry day coming up. It's a big thing. It's an extension of the other conference place. So
that's cool. So the conference still goes on for a week?
Yeah. So it's the whole week is basically leading up to the weekend. It's little events around the city. But then the
Mhm.
actual conference is Saturday and Sunday, October 4th and 5th. So
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So it seems like it's most likely that I'll be at that going to that conference, speaking at the
I hope
conference.
so. Hope
Yeah.
you will. We'll get you over.
Cool. So what else would you like to discuss, if anything?
Well, I think if I'm to kind of give a shout out and a message to everybody listening to this, it would be my one learning from hundreds of clients in the clinic here is don't underestimate stress. Like it's one of my big things, and I do a lot of
Mhm.
talks on that to especially executives because I see a trend and a theme here, and it may just be over here. I don't know in the US, but road cycling is a big thing in Europe.
Yeah.
And there's so many executives that are either running marathon runners or going in the Alps doing long, like 200K bike runs, right? And it's just mind blowing how many of them who are not as healthy as they think they are. And to kind of
Mhm.
become my thing to poke my finger at the fact that I mentioned earlier, right? That, you only have one, you have many branches of the nervous system, but you know what I mean, right? You only have the balance to maintain, right? And getting it right is where the magic lies. And simple little things like when do you train is a big learning. We have lots of clients in the consultation room here who are sleeping very poorly. And when you look at their cortisol levels at 8 o'clock, it totally spikes way above what they wake up with. And that's because they're sitting on their bike, right? And you go,
Right.
why are you doing that? Why? Well, that's because I have to bike when I get off work. It's like, well, it's ruining your sleep. It's ruining your recovery. It's ruining the next day. It's going to ruin your blood sugar the next day. So you need to stop that. If you want to reverse some of your issues, you have to change your simple little routine, right? So,
Right. No, it's definitely really important. What do you tell? How do people deal with that? Like, what do you tell them? What are the hacks that you deal with that?
well, I mean, this is where having good cases in clients come into the play here. That we have a client who is willing to step up in front of his peers in this group and say, I had a triple bypass. I was healthy as fuck. He was super strong, super fit, triple bypass. One day, fell over on his bike. And he was like, I did not see that coming. I said, well, you're clearly inflamed in your body. You're clearly not minding your diet. You're shooting all these gels on your bike. And, you may be fit, physiologically speaking, but biochemically speaking, you're a mess. And that's why you got a triple bypass. And that helps to kind of spread the message that, health is more than just being fit. It's way more than that.
But how do they reduce the stress? Meaning, like, people are. I think most people can't control how stressed they are.
Yeah, so that's where we've spent a lot of time. So we have mental coaches. Half
Hmm.
of our coaches are mental
Okay.
coaches, like mental trainers, and just we always figure out for the individual client what do they need most. And in many cases, it's not more supplements, it's not more lifestyle advice. It's like figuring out, sorting out their lives, de-stressing, and this is where genetics comes in again. When you tell people this is your stress profile, this is how you will react in a stressful situation, now you know that. Here are 2 tricks to lower your stress levels in a heartbeat or 2, and you need to practice that. And
Hmm.
some will go into meditation, some will go into breath work, but the fact that you become mindful of it, we see that helps significantly. And the killer is obviously, once people realize that they can sleep so much better and they start feeling kind of refreshed when they wake up, I mean, people's motivation for change just goes up, right?
You ever recommend ketamine?
Well, it's again living in the most regulated country in the world. It's apart from Middle East, I guess. It's well, actually, I think the Middle East may be more open to those kind of things than we are. Ketamine is not really used here unless you're in some kind of clinical trial for the next
Hmm.
wave of figuring out PTSD or something. Yeah.
Right. I'm a big fan of ketamine.
I've tried it for sure, and I think it's interesting. I tried it with a friend in London, and let me just say, it didn't make me feel super relaxed the first time. But
What dosage did you take? The
I know
dosage is the main. Yeah. Did you take a powder or injectable
injectable.
or Tron? Oh, that's the mistake.
Oh,
Yeah, you need a nasal spray because when you take either injectable or powders, it's very hard because you need to take it in small doses. And
mm,
then when they're doing the injectables, it's usually like 40 to 60 milligrams. It's higher.
yeah,
It's hard to dose it properly, and you're also not going to inject yourself every 30 minutes or kind of the way that you do it is like you take a small amount, but you could take it over a few hours, and then you're able to very well, measure what you're doing. And that the only way to do that is with the intranasal. If you're doing the injectables or powders, it's too small, or you're not going to inject yourself too frequently. It's just you're not going to prick yourself so many times.
Generally, I'm a big believer in that those kind of things will change people's lives for the better, but it does, in my opinion, require that you do it in a setting with a therapist of some sort. It would be my natural kind of instinct on it.
Yeah.
So.
And also somebody that knows what they're doing. People get into trouble when they don't understand how the dosing or administration works. Then they take too much. They don't,
There's a lot of modalities that lower stress. I mean, ashwagandha is a good one to kind of blunt the cortisol spikes. There is psilocybin. I do microdosing on and off.
You do microdose?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's relatively easy to get here in Denmark. A lot of people using it way more.
Is it legal there?
No, it's not.
It's just easier to get because you can just grow it anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is where EU is a little bit interesting.
All right. Cool. It was great talking to you, Martin.
Well, likewise, Joe. Pleasure to connect.
Yeah, it was great connecting. And where can people find your stuff, the conference and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I think the easiest place is just look up my Instagram profile, Martin Kremmer, and there will be links to BioWatch and Copenhagen Health and our longevity program, FreeAge.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thanks, man.
67% of listeners aren't subscribed to the show, so please don't forget to show your support by hitting the subscribe button now. You'll not only be supporting the show, but also investing in yourself and your health journey, all while helping keep us ad-free.